Back to my Mac registers services using Loopback interface IPv6 address. I'd like to be able to use Back to my Mac over the IPv6 internet. I've already got IPv6 access, i.e. my airport is assigned a /64 block from my ISP and sends out RAS so everyone on the network can auto-configure their own public IPv6 addresses. My computer assigns itself both an address based on its MAC address, and a temporary address. I can visit ipv6.google.com and everything, but for some reason a useless loopback IPv6 address is getting registered with Back to my Mac instead of a useful address. Here's what I get using DNSSD. DNSSD-F. DNSSD-UDP _services_DNSSD_UDP123456788.members.btmm.icloud.com. The IPv6 address registered is for LN0, the loopback interface that is useless to anything but the computer running the services. Ifconfig lists my IPv6 addresses, including an auto-configured, temporary, public IPv6 address on my system's real network interface, which would be perfect. Why does DNSSD not register services using this address, and how can I make it do so? An additional note, my router supports NatPMP, so even though my computer doesn't directly have a public IPv4 address, I'd expect it to use NatPMP to make sure services I've enabled are available over IPv4, but this doesn't seem to be the case. When I look up a service instance in the 123456788.members.btmm.icloud.com domain and then use DNSSD-GV4 to resolve the given hostname, it says there's no IPv4 record.
It sounds like what you're really looking for is wide area bonjour, henceforth WAB, which is a system where bonjour-capable clients, in addition to registering their services on the local network via multicast DNS, also use dynamic DNS updates, the scheme in the process of being standardized by the IETF in RFC 2136, to register not only their IP addresses but also available service records with a traditional unicast DNS server. See dns-sd.org for instructions on how to configure your Mac to use WAB. They even have a system preferences panel you can download and install to make it easy. I believe they also have instructions for how to configure WAB to work with some well-known dynamic DNS service providers that support it, such as dyn.com, aka dyndns.com. If you run your own DNS server somewhere, you can also find instructions on dns-sd.org for how to set up your DNS server to act as a WAB server. For best results, it may need to be running bind. Using WAB supporting dynamic DNS services, or running your own WAB supporting DNS server, your only choices. iCloud's BTMM servers do not support full WAB. Back to my Mac makes use of some of the software infrastructure of wide area bonjour, but the iCloud BTMM servers don't provide full WAB service, just the parts needed for the particular way BTMM uses it. As you discovered, BTMM client machines put an IPv6 unique local address, ULA, on their loopback interfaces and register that ULA with BTMM servers. Connections between those ULAs are handled by IPsec secured, typically IPv6, in IPv4, tunnels between your BTMM Macs. It's intentional that you cannot connect to those services directly. This forces the connections to go through the IPsec secured BTMM tunnel. The BTMM software on your Macs handles authenticating your Macs with BTMM and using that to make sure only machines signed into your own BTMM account can establish the BTMM IPsec tunnels. Update, a couple more thoughts. Make sure you don't have block incoming connections checked in the IPv6 settings of your airport base station. Note that Airport Utility 6.0 doesn't currently have IPv6 settings UI, so you'll have to use Airport Utility 5.6 or earlier to check this. Can you ping 6 your home Mac's publicly routable, non-temporary IPv6 address from the other site? Does a typical BTMM connection, i.e. over IPv4, from another Mac signed into your same iCloud account, with BTMM enabled, work? Why are you specifically trying to make this happen over IPv6? I might be able to help you better if I understand your goals and constraints better.
the unsupported panel is indeed a lagging and starting.